Keeping it Morning Express on KTN News, we continue having a discussion in what is making the headlines here in Kenya. Of course, the Migori senatorial by-election and the push for a referendum. And just to finish this topic of Migori senatorial by-election, before we continue with then from there we shall continue with the discussion when it comes to a referendum. And Mr. Wede, just to get your mind, and Honorable Nyonko was talking about the courier vote. Mr. Gwanda is talking about ODM candidate carrying the day. Why would you want to wash away Eddie? And Eddie is already getting support from the courier community, and the courier community has been seen as having lots of voters.
Let's not forget the fact that Honorable Chilayako is a powerhouse in himself. Let me also confess, he was my classmate and a friend. But he is himself a powerhouse. That is why he was able to deal with Obado to the extent he was able, Honorable Obado to the extent. He's been a member of parliament and so on. So even on his own, he would marshal support. The other thing you have to get is that in Luoland, whenever there's an election, there must be the Honorable Raila side and then an enemy is created that is used. This time the enemy is Ruto. So you will always come and say, this is a Ruto man. This is an Uhuru man. Whenever there's an election, there will be somewhere to say, if it is it's not a contest between these two people. It's a contest between Honorable Raila and either Honorable Uhuru or Honorable Ruto. But now that Honorable Uhuru is with Honorable Raila on a handshake, then Mheshimiwa Ruto has been singled out as the enemy of the community. So when you go there to wink wananchi, you tell them it is not them, it is us versus Ruto. So they say Eddie is Ruto's person. That is normally done so that you bring up emotions and people say, now we can't disappoint Jacob and so on. That normally comes when people themselves may be feeling we want so and so.
So are you trying to say, Mr. Wede, that residents of Migori County are going to vote today, not based on development agenda that they want their leader to bring? It is based on these two political leaders.
To help Baba to either stay firmly in Canaan or to reach Canaan. The big agenda in our Luoland community is getting to the presidency, Canaan. And our main candidate for Canaan, our Joshua, is Baba Jacob himself. So whenever he tells us that so and so people like Weda are frustrating my route to the Canaan, the Luo people will not vote for you. They will always Canaan. So any time there is a contest, we must identify those who are anti-Canaan and those who are Canaan. So even recently when Jacob went to there, when he held a huge rally, what did he tell them? He said, I'm already in Canaan. Just about Canaan, we have done the referendum, and we need the likes of Chilayako to be there. Therefore, Honorable William Samoei Ruto is using this young man to frustrate our going to Canaan. And we get mad, and we say, hey.
Okay, so let's look at a scenario, Mr. Gwanda, whereby Eddie carries the day. It will send such a big picture, political picture, to Honorable Raila Odinga, because he spent 2 days, the whole of Thursday last week and Friday last week, campaigning for Chilayako.
I remember very well, I think it was in 2011, I think, when Honorable Roger died in Dewa constituency. And then we had Honorable Agustino Neto, who was given a certificate. And then we have a gentleman called Tom Alila, who came into the scenes. And at that particular time, KANU was very strong, and President Uhuru Kenyatta was in KANU. And they really came with a big bang and supported Tom Alila hugely to clink a position of Member of Parliament in Dewa. It was a by-election. And I remember Honorable, former Prime Minister come to Dewa and say, look, if you don't give me this position, I am not going to run in 2012 then. I think we had 2012 election. I am not going to run in 2012. You cannot give me that kind of shame. Now, what he was telling people on Dewa is, look, this position is so serious to me, and being a Luo community, if you don't give it to me, I will not run. And if I don't run, to hell with you guys. Whoever, nobody else will be able to ascend to this position I am in. Now, that is playing to the emotions, the gallery of the people. In other words, it's telling them emotionally that it is either Raila or you have nothing. And let me tell you, the Luos will hear that. They will. And because he's been there for 2 days, it is practically impossible for Eddie Mwok to win this election. That's a reality. Because look at what Mr. Weda said. Look, if I come here and you know that I'm being fought by my enemies, of course, Junet Mohammed, Honorable Junet Mohammed, mentioned very clearly that who can come, a young man like this, how can he come here with choppers? You know, this is all money from Honorable Ruto. The truth of the matter is, in a campaign, you really don't have to have money. You can have friends who have money who says, can you have this chopper for 2 days? And they'll give it to you for pro bono. So saying that because Eddie has a chopper is definitely from Ruto is erroneous in my view. Okay. But that is also playing to the emotions of the gallery. So that you either make a decision that will not just end with Ochila Yako and the ODM party, but will also translate into Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga being the president or being the prime minister of this country to help the community. Whether that is the truth or not is a fallacy, and it's yet to be determined. But the truth of the matter is his emotions are so powerful to the Luo people that they will always do what he wants.
Okay, Honorable Nyonka, let's bring this conversation to an end, then we cruise over to the push for referendum. Why would you also seem to be pushing away or washing away supporters of Honorable Okoth Obado, the governor of Migori, because he has his supporters and he has a lot of strong political ground in Migori County. And for Honorable Obado, he was supporting Eddie. And of course, now he moved with his supporters to support Eddie. What did it take for Ochila Yako, as the people of Migori go to the by-election today, what did it take Ochila Yako to try and convince Obado's supporters to come and vote for him today?
I think, for me, I would look at it from the point of view that there was a quid pro quo agreement, which was agreed between Raila Amolo Odinga, Obado, and Ayako, particularly after Ayako lost the election for governor. But the bitterness that has existed between Ayako and Ochilo, and indeed ODM as a party, remember, Obado has been elected, the first time he was elected on a small party that once also made me get elected, called PDP, which was unique. Because from Luo Nyanza to have somebody go against the grain and manage to actually convince the voters that against Baba's thinking that at that time, it is something that Obado has carried along with himself, I believe, politically, which I wish he hadn't. But at the same time, his anger with Ochilo Ayako has existed because the elections between Ayako and Ochilo, it's because Kenyans forget very quickly. A lot of people died. There was a lot of hate and anger. So I don't think they actually forgave each other. I don't think they agreed to say, let us bury our differences and move on. So where you are right now is that there's also another element, I think, which I need to bring in here. There's always been the historical issues about the politics of what is historically known as Central Nyanza and the politics of South Nyanza. And the fact that when you look at Obado, who is a Suba, and the Suba community is considered a very small community within the Luo nation. Ochilo has turned it around to look like it is the Suba community now that is actually being vilified and castigated and downtrodden by the larger influence and impact of Raila's politics. But when you go down, even when this is really a race of the titans, like my colleagues have said, I would also be comfortable enough to say that it is true that Ochilo will, at the end of the
carry the day.
Will carry.
Let's wait and see at the end of the day when the polling stations close at exactly 6 p.m. Then the counting begins. Will it be Ochilo Ayako or Eddie?
In fact, the small comment I wanted to add is that this race is like the race that happens in Kericho for the Senate. You remember Kanu had a candidate and you had Jubilee having a candidate. And in 2 days, William Ruto walked into Kericho and all of a sudden everything went helter-skelter and the Jubilee candidate won.
Yeah, all right. We'll wait to see whether Uchila will carry the day or Eddie at the end of today when the voting process will come to an end at 6 p.m. and counting will take place. All that we shall be informed by our senior political affairs reporter, Krista Eru. Gentlemen, let's cross back to the referendum. Deputy President William Ruto, Mr. Weda, just changed his tune. Does it mean he's cornered Honorable Raila? Because initially the Deputy President was like, I'm not supporting this referendum. Then he comes back and says, I'm supporting, but with limitations.
I don't know where you get this thing that the Deputy President is supporting the referendum. I saw the clip, and he was sarcastic. He said, now the job has been shared. Mm-hmm. Well, those who are talkers and rumormongers and projo people, they'll do a referendum. Those who are doing development are on this side. Then they can also sit there, then they come and tell us. But if they tell us this and this, we will not deal with it. If they tell us this, that was sarcasm. You can see that he's saying, referendum is not a priority for us. But if you think that that will keep you busy, go and deal with it. Bring it to us, then we look at it.
So for you, the Deputy President was saying, I'm not supporting referendum.
Yes, you can see it, but I think he has moved to a level where he says, let us wait and see the questions. If the questions are good, we look at them. But if it is about increasing seats, we will not allow it. If it is about lightening the burdens of Wananchi, we will look at it, which is a more reasonable position for a president or a deputy president to say, us, if we find it reasonable, we will support it. If we find it unreasonable, contrary to hard line like some of us here, like whether we say, let's not even go there. We have bigger priorities, we have bigger issues to deal with than the question of a referendum. Let us deal with our problems before we pretend that our problems are emanating from the Constitution. A third of the national budget is being eaten as corruption. Let us look at how we get it, instead of saying, if we amended the Constitution, then we'll be able to get it. So there will be those who were like the Deputy President saying, let's wait and see the questions. If they are good, we accept them. There are people like me who are saying, that is a wrong priority for now. Then there are those who are saying, we want it like yesterday, bring it. So there will be three positions.
Okay. Yes. Gentlemen, you're bringing this conversation to an end. I'll just give you a minute each to give me your feedback. Are we going for a referendum or not?
Well, maybe to answer what you'd asked, whether is about whether Deputy President has softened his part or not. In my view, it is very, very clear. He never supported the 2010 Constitution. He was on no side. He knows very well where the grains are going to now. And he knows very well that if he says no, it will still happen anyway. So it will be a deputy president now in his position that will be going against the grain of his president, who is his boss, literally. And so I think he's been advised well to soften his rhetorics and his abusive language and to stop antagonizing the handshake that is really, really making the president look good and be able to achieve some of his agendas for this year. And I think as a result, he had no reason. You remember just a few months ago, there was lifestyle audit, and Honorable Murkomen came out very clearly and said, no, we don't support this. And that was a president directive. And of course, when Murkomen speaks, you know that the deputy president speaks. And you could see that it was a government divided in the middle between the president's government and the deputy president government. And you can see that that brought friction to a point where basically been a lot of complaint from the deputy president side that they've not been involved in a lot of decisions that are taking place. And so the farther he stands into his critique about what the president is doing, the more he's alienated from the center of power. And I think he's realizing that. Remember, when you're alienated from the center of power, then you don't have your people to be involved in the government, you don't have information and many other things. And when you realize that that is happening in a government like what we have today, then you better think quickly and join the force. Otherwise, you'll find yourself out. And remember, in Kenyan situation, Honorable Nyonka here will agree with me, the government has been determining who becomes the next president, not necessarily the individuals that wants to be the president of this country. And so if the president is against, and the government seems to be against him because of the friction that we've been seeing him, you know, sort of saying different stuff from what the president is doing, then he knows that he will not make it. I think he's wise enough to turn around to support the president.
Honorable Nyonka, in a minute.
Yes, I think 2 weeks ago, is it a week ago, the deputy president made a serious political mistake by throwing insults at Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Many people in the political world were very uncomfortable because he's still the deputy president of this country. So he needs to know what he says about everybody in this country. This week, he has vindicated himself by taking Raila's own game and taking the ball right back to Mguu Kumi na Mbili. And everybody again is saying, now this guy looks like he's becoming bright and clever. He has to learn to make himself be seen as somebody who's constantly antagonistic towards the powers that be, towards everybody else. And with time, I believe that the referendum is going to happen for the simple reason that the mood in the country, even when I agree with Ambrose Weda that maybe we shouldn't be discussing it right now, but there's something that is totally dysfunctional about our constitutional dispensation right now.
Okay, we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for talking to us. Richard Onyonka, Kitutu Chache, South Member of Parliament, and of course, Ambrose Weda, a lawyer, and Michael Agwanda, who's a governance expert, talking to us about this push for a referendum and, of course, this senatorial by-election that is being held in Migori County today. Just to remind you that a senior political affairs reporter, Chris Thairi, is already on the ground trying to keep tabs with what's happening. Of course, you've had several complaints from residents of Migori County. Some of them woke up as early as 4 a.m. They're yet to vote. It took long for the voting machines to start working. Others cannot find their names on that list and also on the BVR kits. All that happening in Migori County, and we shall ensure that we bring you up to date here on KTN News Morning Express, and of course during a subsequent bulletins here on KTN News. All right, time to let go of you, gentlemen, as we continue the Morning Express.
Thank you very much.